Hello and welcome back. We're going to continue to work on our Unit 3 Color Theory Acrylic Painting project. Today we're working on Lesson 3.15. This is all about finishing all of our painting work and getting this ready to turn in. So we are ready to put our final touches on our project today. So we're going to really look at anything that we want to add or continue to work on for our project. So we're going to look at the main subject area matter. We're going to look at the background elements. We're going to add some things to the background as well today and really just tidy up and finish anything we need to. At the end, you will see on the screen optional. It is that you have the option to outline your project in a black marker if you have one. That is, again, optional, is something that you might want to do, but it's up to you. We're going to go ahead and jump over to our camera. And one of the reasons that I mention the outlining is oftentimes our artist would outline in a black marker, um, the designs would have a black outline around them. So that's one of the things that kind of pulls in that Peter Max work and is a little bit inspired by him. Okay, so looking at my project, I've got a couple of things that need to happen. I have a face and some little highlights that I need to work on. I've got to get the eyes in there, and I do want to add a couple of things to the background. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with this. We might add some highlights in some places as well. So let's go ahead and start with something a little bit fun. I need to get his eyes in here. You notice that I have not used my black paint at all. And I'm not going to use black paint to outline, but I will use black paint to do his eyes. I want them to be a nice solid surface, solid color black. So I just have a very little bit about on my paper there that I'm going to use. I do have a round liner kind of brush here. So I'm going to grab that black paint and I'm going to go in here and paint in this center part of his eyes. Now, Um, because I'm outlining in black, I technically could do this in black too, marker, and that would be fine. But I did want to keep that painterly feel for this, so I'm going to use the paint. If I'm looking back, there is a little highlight on my coloring page that I want to try to leave white. So I'm going to just be cognizant of that as I go through. And I'm going to start with the edge, pulling my brush. If I need to turn or rotate my canvas, I certainly will. Okay, that's going to be pretty much the shape that I'm looking for in this detail. So now I'm going to round out some things and I will try to round out where I want that little highlight or white spot to be for his eye and then kind of fill in. I think that looks okay. He looks okay. I was a little worried about this step. I think that looks fine. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this other side over here. If I need to turn my canvas, I'll just do that. Again, leave that spot open. Okay, I think that on top of doing that, I think I'm going to also do his mouth in that same idea with this black. And we'll see if I like that in the end. So I'm just going to put in the detail marks here. And this is one of those things that, like, I'm a little nervous because this is one of those moments where I could really ruin my project. I could do something. It's hard to get back from black. It's hard to clean up from black. And I'm really happy with how my projects turned out. So, like, at this point, I don't want to make a mistake that I'm like, oh, I hate that, and have to go back and fix it. But just be careful when you're making those kinds of decisions, um, that you are aware. This is something I have to be careful doing because I'm a little bit concerned about it. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want it to look too big or too small. I don't want to have to go back and redo. All right, so I'm really happy with his little face there. I think that's looking better. I'm not gonna lie, that first eye had me very nervous, which is why I was like, ooh. Okay, and then I have like two little circles on either side. Now those are supposed to be more like a highlight for my crab. So I'm gonna grab some white and I'm gonna grab some of a lighter blue color. Now, what I might do is not grab a lighter blue color, but use the color blue I've been using, but with more white on my brush. That way I'm not introducing a new color to the project. That will help create some unity, make it feel like it belongs. So I have some white, a little bit of blue on my brush, and I'm just going to go in. That's coming out okay. And paint in that lighter highlight spot. And this, I think I want it to be more subtle. And I may need to go back over that. It looks like I need maybe another little coat of that to even that out a little bit before we're done. So we'll let that dry and I'll come back to it. One of the other things that we can do is put a little bit of paint on our brush and kind of just come back in one of the areas like on my coloring book page that has these little highlights over here. I did originally draw them in. I decided against that, but what I am going to do is just with my liner brush come in and put in some highlights, details with my liner brush. Okay, and the same thing, I might add some down here where those highlights might be. And I can do this on really any parts of the painting that I want to do. So I'm doing this right now on the crab, but I could also do this on some of those other elements here. I find that when you do this, it's harder to go back over like I was just doing to try to add to that. Um, it's easier to get it right the first time. So load your brush up kind of heavy, um, so that you have quite a bit of paint so that when you're doing that highlight, you don't have to go back over top of it again. So I'm liking this so far. Those extra lines that you're like, oh, I thought I was done, right? But sometimes just going back in with these highlights at the very end really do enhance the project, make it look more painterly, but you have to be careful you don't overdo it, and that these should be done kind of sparingly. Those are actually okay. I'm liking that one. Let's see. All right, that's looking pretty cool. All right, so I might actually come in and do one there. Okay, pretty happy there. Again, I think I need to do a little bit more work on those. But one of the other things that I wanted to mention is when, again, if we're inspired by Peter Max's work, when we're looking at his work, he has these extra elements like the circles and the stars and the clouds and things. But he also comes back in and randomly will put in dots, kind of radiating out from that center focal point. And so, as we're thinking about the focal point of our project, we may want to add some other little elements or dots. So, I wanted to go through this process with you a little bit because there's a really easy way to add circles and dots to our project with very little effort. I've got a pencil with a really nice clean eraser on it, and I've got several of my other paintbrushes with the ends of their paintbrushes being different diameters. So I can go in here with my paintbrush, or not my paintbrush, my pencil eraser, and pick up paint on a nice little circle. And now I can come into my project and just touch that down, go back to my paint. If I don't touch the whole way down, I'll get a smaller circle. Okay. And I can come down and just add a couple of these dots, okay, kind of radiating out from the center. If you don't want anything quite this big, that's okay too. Okay, and I can come out wherever there's like an empty space, and I'm like, oh, I need something there. Let me fill that space. You can think about doing something like this. Now, some of these look like they might need a little bit of a touch up when I'm done, and that's okay. I can totally go back and do that. If I need smaller ones, I'll use like a paintbrush, load that up, and I tend to do my dots in um, my compositional stuff in odd numbers. So there I did put 4, which I like because of the way where it's positioned. But I tend to do this stuff in 3s or 5s because I just like the way odd numbers look better than even numbers. Um, so you can think about placing a few dots coming out from your composition. Now you don't want to go too crazy. I think I'm probably done. And one of the reasons why is we don't want it to look like our painting all of a sudden got a whole bunch of acne and we have pimples everywhere. Okay, but we want to be selective, but it does add another level of interest to our composition, and it is pretty easy to do, and it reminds us of that artist. So there's some really good advantages to doing this. I'm touching up some of these circles. Okay, so I think that's it. I think that's all I want to do. Maybe I should put a couple over here, maybe way high. That would be just a little bigger. So I just make a little circle. And I can't stand the 2, so I got to put a third one in. All right, there you go. Done. Not going to add any more. I don't want to go crazy with that. So other than, I think, um, those are pretty thick. So if you need to do more paint after you do that, you might want to um, get your hair dryer or blow dryer or something and dry that off a little bit. My little light spots are ready to go here, so I'm going to grab just a little bit of that white paint with a little bit of that blue and just kind of go over these spots again. Oop, too much, too much, too much, too much. Clean that off a little bit. And I'm just doing this really carefully not to get into those dots that I didn't dry. Okay. All right. I'm really happy with him. I think he looks pretty good. Overall, I'm happy with the composition again. So adding some highlights in, adding some dots in there, finalizing any of those last minute painting details and things you need to do. That's the objective for today. If you do choose to outline, again, you would want to make sure your paint is entirely dry. Use a ruler. Okay. Put that ruler down and trace those lines. Don't freehand any straight lines. Obviously, around my um, crab and things like that, I can't use a ruler. But any straight lines, use a ruler and make sure those lines are nice and perfectly straight. All right. Again, if you have any questions, reach out and let me know. At this point, I need to take a really good picture of this and upload it as progress for my progress sketchbook. Thank you guys. Enjoy the process.